1960s, the Sands Hotel and Casino was the hottest spot in the desert. But in Vegas, styles shift like the dunes, and in less than 50 years, the Sands became little more than dust in the winds of change. When it settled, Las Vegas Boulevard, the electric avenue affectionately called the Strip, prepared for the next new thing. Only 2.5 years after the Sands was imploded, the $1.5 billion Venetian Resort Hotel Casino rose on the site. Because one stylish Italian deserves another, Sophia Loren arrived to officially open it. The fastest growing city in the United States, Las Vegas is arguably the entertainment capital of the world. Each year, tourists plunk down more than $6 billion on the gambling tables. In 1931, during the Depression, Nevada became the only place in the United States where people could gamble. So Vegas happily volunteered to take their cash. Nearly 50 years later, when other states legalized gambling, it looked like Vegas would face a reversal of fortune. But it hadn't played all of its cards yet. Bill Widener, president of the company that owns the Venetian, tells how the town hedged its bet.
In 1989, Las Vegas was reinvented once again, and the Mirage became the beginning of the themed fantasy resort that really broadened the base of visitation to Las Vegas from kind of pure gambling with a few amenities around it to terrific destination-style amenities that happen to have a casino in it.
The next 10 years saw a total makeover along the Strip. Gambling became known as gaming, and billions of dollars poured into new hotel construction instead of into slot machines. Rob Goldstein, president of the Venetian Hotel, saw where the smart money was going.
Building boxes full of slot machines is not the answer to Las Vegas' success today. Building boxes with great dining, great art, great shows, great rooms, stuff to do, fun stuff, escapist stuff is what's driving Las Vegas' success today. 35 million people visit here. Our job is to make Vegas a must-see place far beyond the gambling experience.
Flooded by brilliant lights and flowing with untold riches, this little desert town, named for the Spanish phrase, the Meadows, is like nowhere else on Earth. And that's precisely the point. You can find a bit of everything here. See a volcano erupt every 15 minutes. Watch two galleons fight a battle at sea. Stroll the Strip and see the world. From concrete and steel, water and electricity come genuine magic. Perfect illusions to tantalize the imagination. But scratch the surface and you'll see that Vegas isn't all fun and games. In boardrooms and on construction sites, Las Vegas developers fight a pitched battle to build the most magnificent hotel on the Strip. It starts with a winning theme. Sheldon Adelson demanded that his new hotel capture the spirit of romance, luxury, and excitement.
It was actually my wife's idea. We had carried on a charrette, a creative brainstorming session for a couple of weeks with the architects and designers. And one day my wife walked in and she looked on the wall. There were about 100 different names, and immediately her eye, like a laser, went right to the word Venice.
The Stubbins Associates, a Boston architectural firm, was among the companies Adelson hired to design the Venetian Hotel. But before they even got started, he sent them packing. Coming up, bringing Venice to Vegas without losing something in the translation. After the break. Imagine moving a city of canals into the heart of a desert. That's what the owner of the Venetian Resort in Las Vegas had in mind when he sent his designer team to Venice, Italy. Bill McGee was on the design team.
We were looking for the most recognizable icons in Venice, and clearly a lot of those are around St. Mark's Square and along the Grand Canal. So we spent a lot of time trying to capture what the essence of those icons were and what the importance of those were and which ones of those would translate into the project we were planning on doing in Las Vegas. Well, the Campanile in St. Mark's, Venice has always been recognized as is working like a hinge point, so that as you walk in from the Grand Canal, it's on your left side and it essentially turns you into the deep part of St. Mark's Square. The client was the one who really said it needs to come over and anchor this plaza, and it really does work as a hinge point deep into the site. So this is the library building from St. Mark's Square, and what we've done here is we have, through a series of moving walkways, we've picked people up just as they've come by the library building, which is Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. Take your picture with Arthur or Harrison Ford, whomever. You come back out, and now we're going over the Rialto Bridge, and it becomes the piece that bridges over the top of the driveway. This is obviously further up the Grand Canal. It's not part of St. Mark's, but it's a beautiful, well-known icon. People get a beautiful panorama as they're moving on this moving walkway down into the Contarini building. So you come over the top of the Rialto into the Contarini. This is the Bridge of Sighs, the famous pedestrian bridge. I don't know if you know the story or not, but the prison, actually what's next to the Doge's Palace in Venice is the prison. So this used to be the last view through that little window that people would get as a free person, therefore the Bridge of Sighs. So you cross over the Bridge of Sighs, and then you're into the second-story loggia of the Doge's Palace itself.
In order to do justice to icons that are as recognizable as those in Venice, you've really got to follow through and make the materials real, make the colors real. Sheldon brought in a historian from Venice to help in the design process and, more importantly, to follow through in the actual construction.
I was a stickler for the detail because it had to be authentic. You know, everything was on a one-to-one scale. The Campanelli Bell Tower is 302 feet high and 40 feet square in Venice, and here in Las Venice, it's 302 feet high and 40 feet square. St. Mark's Square, 220 feet long, 120 feet wide. That gave it an awesome feeling, truly like you're in St. Mark's Square in Venice.
Well into the planning stage, Sheldon Adelson decided to raise the roof of St. Mark's Square another 6 meters to 7 stories. Painted on the ceiling, 21 meters above the square, lifelike clouds dance across the perpetually sunny Venetian sky. The rest is real.
The authenticity of the way that we built this is evidenced in, for instance, the marble. I've never seen a hotel in modern times built with solid marble columns. There's about 120 of them just in this lobby. And the marble floors, this three-dimensional marble design was taken from a church called the Gesuati in Venice. And we had measurements of each of the components of this design so that we could reproduce it accurately. And the same thing with the marble design around the fountain and the various other designs that we did. What you're seeing up in the ceiling are various paintings. They're actually three-dimensional. We brought in a Venetian artist who's a specialist in trompe-l'oeil to make the trompe-l'oeil pop out at you, jump out at you. And by the way, every millimeter that you see is hand done. Nothing is done by machine. It's all hand done. Every square millimeter. For instance, the Veronese painting called The Apotheosis of Venice, which is in our Great Hall, is 50 feet long and 38 feet wide. And it was very, very difficult to reproduce this painting. So it had to be done in strips on canvas, by hand, by many, many artists. And it took the better part of a year. I must say I'm very gratified when I see people walk through and look up at the paintings, and they look up and they go, whew, wow. And then I've seen people lie down on the floor with cameras looking up, taking pictures of the artwork in the ceiling. And Venice is timeless. It's the most decadent, the most luxurious, the most rich kingdom that I have ever seen. And certainly decadence and luxury is the name of it. And romantic, just ride in a gondola. You'll see what I mean.
team got together and really came to the conclusion that a street scene from Venice was going to be our retail theme. We decided to take it that next step and say Venice is the city of water, the streets of water. There is no other city in the world quite like it. It is unique, and therefore that canal and the ability to put a gondola in that canal, and in fact even to give rides to people in the gondolas, became a real driving force in that retail environment. People would come simply to experience a walk along a water street in the city of Venice.
This particular water street, almost half a kilometre long, flows inside the building. Constructing the nearly metre-deep canal presented a structural challenge on 3 levels. On the roof above the canal sits the Venetian's pool deck, exerting tremendous pressure of its own. Under the pool, on the 2nd floor and adjacent to St. Mark's Square, the canal brims with more than 1 million litres of water, weighing as much as 30 fully loaded lorries. And under the canal, the casino bustles.
The real planning challenge had to do with resolving the conflict between the apparent necessity for the casino to have no columns and the idea that you need columns to hold up the weight of the water. What we did is wound the canal in back of the casino in such a way that we didn't have a canal at any place where we had a large open bay in the casino. If you get a large, long span to hold up a very heavy load, you're going to have some movement, some deflection in the span. And that's bad when you have water, because you want the water to stay as still as possible so it won't leak.
At 5 every morning, Jim Albers and his crew from the Venetian's Facilities Department inspect the canal for leaks, cracks, and broken tiles.
Per Clark County health regulations, this is an amusement ride. We do have to maintain pool quality water in it. It functions just like a swimming pool in any public area. We do have skimmers that take water and debris from the canal down to the pump room. We run about 1,100 gallons a minute. The system never shuts down. It is constantly filtering this water. It goes through a series of sand filters. Then it goes through an acid treatment to maintain pH and alkalinity. It goes through an ozone system to delete bacteria from the water, and finally a chlorination system to bring it up to the health department standards. The water is then returned through a series of 14 lion's heads. We also have floor returns where you can see the water is bubbling up here. Another part of our maintenance program is the fact that people throw the coins in, make their wishes. We have to go through approximately every 3 months and remove the coins because it could possibly restrict some of our water flow.
The real Venetians were smart to keep their canals outdoors for slightly easier maintenance.
This canal is not what we would consider an amusement ride, such as the one inside is. We don't have to maintain the water quality out here that we do on the indoor canal. The bubbles you see coming up here are part of an oxygenation system that has ozone mixed with it. It's part of our algae control. They're located within the deepest parts of the canal, so we get the most water contact. We have an evaporation rate of approximately 9,000 gallons a week that we make up with well water. The pump room for this canal is located under Campanelli Tower. It's a series of pumps and filtration systems and chlorination systems for the canal and the outdoor fountain features that we have here. There again, we circulate about 1,100 gallons a minute through this canal 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We perform a water analysis on the canal. We also do a visual inspection of all the interior areas of the gondolas, the docks. They do an inspection of the pumping systems to make sure we haven't got any problems in there. The public loves it. They line up here in the afternoons when we have gondoliers floating back and forth, singing. People feel like they're in Venice.
Venice just wouldn't be Venice without the gondolas, and neither would the Venetian. In 1996, Bob Hlusak's company, in the middle of the Mojave Desert, signed a most unusual contract.
What you see standing beside me here is something that we never expected to be building gondolas for the Venetian. And we had the opportunity and pleasure to make these beautiful boats, and they're simply replicas of the real gondolas that are there. They're a little bit shorter and a little bit differently configured, but they're very authentic in their accoutrements, their trimmings, and so forth. In the case of the Venetian, Mr. Adelson had enough foresight to understand that it needed a lot of special attention and some extra time, so he came to us right from the start so that we could get involved with the designers and the architects initially and help them create this whole feeling of Venice. And he shipped a number of us over to Venice to take photographs and do research. We took about 3,000 photographs of the statuary, the building facades that we thought we were going to replicate. That was the thrust, that was the charge that we were given to make it as authentic as possible within the time and the budget. I did not want, and I don't want this to be considered some sort of a rip-off replication or duplication. It's not a knockoff, it's really meant to be homage to that beautiful city and go capture that sense of Venice, that soul and spirit of it, and try to put it here in Las Vegas. In a short time, mind you. So I think we did a pretty good job, but given that we only had 2 years to do it and they had, 600, you know.
Treadway Industries fabricates architectural themes. Nothing here is what it appears to be.
So this is where most of it starts, with these big EPS foam blocks, expanded polystyrene. These are 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot blocks. This is where a lot of those architectural elements start, the arches, the columns, the capitals, the statuary that you'll see on some of these highly ornate buildings start off as these EPS foam blocks. It starts out as a good material to sculpt with, because the machine can cut it very specifically within a particular envelope. The wire can make as many curves and turns as you want to program into it. And some people look at it as a fake or a faux thing, but I would prefer to see it as a new medium that we can bring back the aesthetics and the emotion into our architecture, because now it's affordable, now it's practical.
The way we start is with a work order, which will give us size and dimension. That work order will go over to the foam cutting machine, and they will cut in sections blocks of foam that will give us a silhouette for the artist to follow. Then what we will do is make a clay mock-up, which will let the artist put in the fine detail. We put the sections together with spray glue usually, or hot glue, and then we'll take razor blades and sandpaper and use those materials to help define all the different details. So we can use the sandpaper here. This picture from Venice was taken for us and given to us to use as our reference material, because that's very important, because we're following a theme, which is the Venetian style. So we need to keep, pretty close to our reference material.
Once we have the final shape that we've been trying to achieve, whether it be a sculpted piece or like this is a fairly geometric piece, we put a protective coating over it, a hard coat we call Polyguard. And this Polyguard is a urethane plastic, and it creates a very hard coat that's weather resistant. And then we could finish it with whatever kind of paint you choose. So automotive paints or water-based paints, it doesn't matter. This is where most of everything ends up. This is the faux finish department. And this is where we take the foam, the cast materials, the plaster, the concrete, whatever we've made, and turn it into the stone, the marble, the bronze, what have you. You can see Janet is taking sort of a green patina and applying it over a metal-looking horse. This is actually a foam and Polyguard piece, so it's very lightweight. But once she gets done with it, it'll look like a massive, huge piece of cast bronze. And that's the illusion that we're trying to create, and that's the economy of what we can create here. There's a certain randomness that happens in nature with stone, with patina, that if you don't have an eye for and if you don't have a feel for, you won't get it. And your observer will see instantly that's fake. What we've got the talent to do here is to achieve that reality so that you don't know it's a fake until you bang on it.
The stone and metalwork of Venice took hundreds of skilled artisans hundreds of years to carve by hand. The artists at Treadway Industries had only 24 months to copy more than 80,000 architectural elements.
Along with pieces of art that are individually sculpted and delivered to the client, there are also other pieces that you want to repeat. Like the example would be the column or a capital that repeats itself across the facade of a building, like in the Doge's Palace at the Venetian. So that would be a repeated piece, and it makes a lot of sense to spend the money and time and effort on making a mold. So that this blue material that you see here, it's a silicone rubber. And there's different types of rubbers that you can use, but it's a very pliable material that you put the cast concrete into. That's what you see going on behind me here, is they're casting up different types of concrete parts into these rubber style molds. They basically make a framework to hold that rubber in place so that it makes a very consistent part that doesn't have any discrepancies in its tolerances. And they set for a half hour to an hour, and they're able to pop a part out.
Artists may copy the look of Venice, but can they really capture its flavor?
There was one time I was out in the front of the Doge's Palace, right next to the water, and the wind came across and moved one of the boats in the water, and it instantly transported me back to Venice, just for that instant. And that gave me a real chill and a real joy of, wow, we did it. We actually pulled it off.
Coming up, what does it take to bring Paris to Vegas? Nothing short of the world's largest crane. After the break. Parisians were shocked when Gustave Eiffel constructed his tower in 1889. Who would have dreamed that one day it would be a Vegas landmark? The Perini Building Company engineered the facade of the Paris-Las Vegas Resort Hotel and Casino to create the flavor of the City of Light.
This Eiffel Tower is exactly half scale of the one in Paris. We took the original drawings, which were prepared by Gustave Eiffel in the 1880s. We took those in French, put them into the computers, recalculated everything, and came up with a half-scale version. Everything is half-scale except for the elevators. Obviously, if we had those half-scale, the people would have to be half-scale. And the elevators go vertically from inside the Eiffel, instead of following the leg, which they do in the one in Paris. The biggest problem was craneage. We took the world's biggest crane, 560 feet, specially developed to put that top piece on the Eiffel Tower. The biggest challenge to building the Eiffel Tower was to coordinate the erection of the Eiffel with the rest of the building, because we have the three legs of the Eiffel Tower coming up inside the casino, with one leg outside on the strip. So this made a massive coordination problem of all the steel to try and build a vertical building and a horizontal building of the roof of the casino, tying into the verticality of the tower. The original tower was riveted back in the 1800s. This one is all welded steel, which makes for a much stronger structure. We put the 300,000 false rivets on it just to replicate the original. One of the things we had to redesign here is the wind loads, because they're different obviously to Paris. And this tower is designed for 75-mile-an-hour wind load, which we get a lot of strong winds here in the desert in Nevada. As well as the Eiffel Tower, another outstanding feature is the Montgolfier balloon behind me, and that's used for our signage. This was another difficult feat to build because of its shape. It had to be serious wind studies given to this for its anchoring on the strip where we'll get these 75-mile-an-hour winds. We'll be affected by all the buildings. We've got Bally's, Bellagio behind us, Aladdin, and the Flamingo Hilton on this corner. So all of these were factored into the wind study.
A Canadian company, Rowan, Williams, Davies and Irwin, conducted the wind tunnel tests on Paris, Las Vegas. Architects don't like surprises. and a gust of wind or even a persistent breeze could take a surprising toll on a building's structure, glazing and cladding. Imagine what can happen when the desert delivers a 65-knot hurricane-force wind. No need to imagine. Smoke reveals the wind flow patterns and a building's shortcomings. Model makers attach small hoses to the scale models. In the wind tunnel, air currents flow into each of the small holes or ports through the hoses to a pressure measuring device. The device, under the wind tunnel, sends electronic signals to a series of computers. Tests simulate changing wind conditions. Based on the result, engineers may have to rethink their designs.
This particular model was used to measure structural loads on the balloon itself. And just to give you an idea, this balloon stands approximately 20 stories in height, so it's a rather large structure in itself. What we're able to do was to measure base loads for footings and foundations, provide loads as we go up the balloon side so that various structural members that would be necessary to accommodate the wind loads that this particular sign would see. Now, the largest aspect, or the largest building that you see on the model over here, of course, is an exact replica of the Eiffel Tower. However, when we were studying that portion, or that structure, we needed to build a much larger tower in order to take the structural measurements off of it. This is called an aeroelastic model, a dynamic model, meaning as the wind blows, the model will move, and it's that motion that we're measuring in the wind tunnel using the particular sensors that we have, in this case up the spine of the tower itself. And that provides us with the specific wind loads which will be acting on the various levels and the various members of the Eiffel Tower. It's very important to model surroundings in all the studies we do, because the surroundings have a unique influence on the wind patterns and the wind flows, which will affect the development that we are interested in or studying at this time. Now, Las Vegas itself, you have various types of structures. Nowhere in the world do you have a pyramid next to a castle, next to the skyline of New York City. So wind flows off of those type of structures significantly influence the flow patterns. And here we're doing a smoke visualization study. And as you can see, there's very unique flows here between the Paris Hotel and the Aladdin Hotel. And that's just due to the positioning of these two towers and the proximity to one another. If we look at the flows around the balloon sign, you can see that there's a very unique separation and a very turbulent flow down in this area. We can move over to the Eiffel Tower itself. It's a more porous building, and there's less influence of the force of the wind on something like that. If we move along to one of the other sides of the hotel tower, you can see that there is quite unusual flows and some swirling, and that's really due to the shape.
Eiffel Tower is one of the major icons in the whole world, and here we have the second one here in Las Vegas. Here we are 460 feet above the strip and the observation deck. We still have another 80 feet of structure above us. I never thought I'd be involved in such a fantastic project that's getting so much attention. And at present we're getting about 4,000 visitors a day. It's far exceeding anything we ever thought. It's become one of the major landmarks of the Las Vegas Strip.
Built in the heat and heart of the Mojave Desert in the United States, a thriving city the size of Las Vegas defies logic. When the prospectors and small ranch owners came here in the early 1900s, they found enough water to survive, but not much else. Wild burros among the Joshua trees are descendants of the original prospectors' burrows. Like a cactus, Las Vegas grew slowly, utilizing whatever resources it could tap from the harsh desert. In 1905, the railroad came through the Las Vegas Valley. The town became a small community of a few thousand people. Some stores and hotels went up, along with several saloons. With little to do, the locals and travelers passed the time by gambling. In 1931, the state of Nevada legalized gambling, and Las Vegas declared itself the gaming capital of the world. A risky bet, but it began to pay off. By 1960, the population was under 100,000. Today, the Vegas area has blossomed to 1.3 million, and the colossal resort hotels on the Strip have created jobs and stimulated rapid growth. About 7,000 people move to Vegas every month. In the next 25 years, an estimated 1 million more people will call Las Vegas their home. None of this would have happened without water. As the city continues to widen, Las Vegas must drink ever more deeply from Lake Mead, created in the 1930s when the Hoover Dam harnessed the wild Colorado River. But now, Lake Mead can scarcely quench the thirst of this boom town. To get the water flowing cleaner and faster, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has undertaken a mammoth civil engineering project. It includes a new intake pipe 60 meters below the surface of Lake Mead, an underground reservoir, pumping stations, a water treatment plant, and additional pipelines. In Vegas, water means more than life. It means lifestyle. Resort guests want their golf greens truly green. And water creates splashy displays along the Strip. In fact, it's become the star attraction at the $1.6 billion Bellagio Resort. Steve Wynn, former CEO of the Bellagio, demanded something spectacular, even by Vegas standards.
When Steve Wynn asked us to create the Fountains of Bellagio, it was clear from the conversation that, as with all of his projects, he wanted to create something which had no model, no identity. It would be absolutely unique from anything else in the world.
$30 million later, Wynn got what he asked for. In a 5-hectare lake containing well over 100 million liters of water, twice the average amount available for every person on Earth in a year. The Fountains of Bellagio combine engineering and art on a grand scale. Mark Fuller's Los Angeles-based company, Wet Design, created the extravaganza.
Well, the fountains here employ over 1,000 individually programmed jets. And because of the great number of individual devices, they can be moved and joined together to create a singular expression of movement and fluidity in time with the music. There are lots and lots of nozzles in the fountains. There are what we call shooters, which are the extremely powerful rockets of water which pick up on the staccato movements of the fountain. And then there are the jets that wave back and forth, called oarsman jets, and those pick up the legato motion. So they're really the percussive jets and then the gentle, slowly moving ones. The jets, when they fire and you see them go to their highest, are going 80 meters high, actually the height of a 24-story building. You might hear some rather loud noises as the jets just explode into the air. That's done by compressed air because that's the only energy source that would really create that tremendously punchy staccato to accompany the legato movement of many of the other jets.
The hydraulic and pneumatic equipment fills a space below the hotel. A computer runs the show, timing every spray of water to the nearest 30th of a second. It's a high-pressure job.
A whole series of compressors, actually over 4,000 horsepower of compressors, compress the air to over 100 pounds per square inch. And all of the air is pumped up to huge tanks, in some cases to 250 pounds per square inch, and that stores the energy so that it's available when the computer says fire to those hundreds of jets. If you think of a rocket that's fired by fuel igniting, imagine these are water rockets fired by explosive releases of compressed air. The pressures are all adjusted moment to moment by the computers, and that force of compressed air then determines how high the jets will shoot. Behind me is a different set of equipment which pumps water to very high pressures, 2,000 pounds per square inch, to create the fog that is another one of the romantic elements in some of the musical pieces.
Midnight. As the last show ends, Tre Price starts her workday. She and other designers typically stay till dawn, programming new performances.
You find places in the music you want to highlight, things you want to do special movements with, and we actually use the music inside the computer via the CD. Then I begin building the code, actually writing code. We use a piece of software developed by Wet Design specifically for this fountain. So I will write a sequence for the music on the computer. Then I'll do a process that's called compiling. And we are connected to the computer that runs the fountain. So I can literally press a series of keys and do a series of commands and have the performance play for me on the lake. And I can actually watch what I've just written on the fountain, on the lake, and then edit what needs to be changed or modified, and then come back and write some more, and then review it again on the lake. I think most of us that work on these fountains do consider ourselves artists and choreographers, and that we are very much interpreting water and movement and light and interpreting music.
Dancing water, indoor gondola rides, La Petite Eiffel Tower. Vegas keeps trying to top itself. Stay around and see what's going up or coming down after the break. When they built the Aladdin Hotel and Resort in 1966, they built it to last. But it didn't. 32 years after its gala opening night, Aladdin had no wishes left. Its magic gone, it vanished in a puff of smoke, aided by a few well-placed explosives. But the genie was out of the bottle. In April 1998, construction began on the new Aladdin Hotel Resort, promising more enchantment than ever. Engineering project director Terry Towle supervised the magical transformation.
The Aladdin Gaming Project is a massive casino complex. It's almost 4 million square feet, roughly 2 million square feet in the tower itself. This is a steel structure, roughly about 26,000 tons of steel, probably 130,000 plus cubic yards of concrete, so it is a massive undertaking. We're standing in Dome of Spirits East, and you're looking back here at Hanging Gardens. This is part of Aladdin Bazaar's retail area. There's about 130 shops that go all around this facility. You're looking back at a large water feature. Over here to my left, you see some of the superstructure going in to carry some of the mountains, which is part of the entire Aladdin theme. You're looking into what we call Lost City. It's the most heavily themed retail portion of the project. The scaffold deck you're looking on is to build a massive sky ceiling, and you can see some of the support structure for the mountains that'll go all the way up to the top of the ceiling. What you're standing in is our casino area. It's about 100,000 square foot. Above me, you can see a massive ceiling. The wires hanging down support our ceiling area. Above the ceiling, that's where the pool is, out 6 stories above Las Vegas Boulevard. But there's some unique challenges with that. The weight of all that water requires us to beef up the structure significantly to handle the earthquake loads, essentially the lateral resistance during an earthquake. We're standing on the 39th floor. This is the high roller suite area, invitation only. Above me, you can see the roof. We're about as high as the FAA will let us go. During construction here, the wind blew so hard it would lift up 4x4s and throw them off the building if everything wasn't tied down. We had to do extensive wind tunnel testing to finalize the design here.
We have approximately 30 acres of site here with 23 acres of roof, so it doesn't leave us much room on site to stage any material. Everything we bring in here has got to come in on trucks. What they try to do is put everything together on the ground and hoist it up in big pieces to save some time that way. It's worked out fairly well here. One of the challenges here is the design build concept with fast track included. The construction a lot of times catches up with the design. We do have a great support staff here with project engineers, so on and so forth, that are constantly pushing out design to keep the construction moving. Also, we have 54 subcontractors here. To keep all those guys coordinated is an ongoing, everyday challenge for us. I would say by anyone's standard, it's a huge job. 2 years from start to go here, 2 years is cutting it right down to the wire.
Aladdin's owners have wagered $1.3 billion on the hotel's success. The contractors hired more than 1,300 workers to see that the bet pays off. Once again, the stakes have been raised and the competition has to ante up or fold.
You walk around the space, you turn and go down the escalators so that you're aimed at the casino. But we're beginning to think now that this really wants to be an atrium space.
In Boston, the architects at the Stubbins Associates feel the pressure. The design for Phase 2 of the Venetian must surpass the magnificence of Phase 1.
Through that little window.
Computer programs render the options, helping to visualize layouts and materials.
We have the ability to very quickly model the building from any different direction. This is a view of our complex, the complete complex. This is from the other side of Las Vegas Boulevard, looking at the Phase 2 tower, the Phase 1 tower, the low-rise, the Campanile. Here's our plaza. You can really see here we've zoomed right in on our plaza along Las Vegas Boulevard. There's the Rialto Bridge, the tower, and this is a view of our second floor of the retail mall. We can zoom in on parts of that and then start to extrude it into 3 dimensions. This is a part we call the Galleria. We can then start to render the 3D image in a way that's very lifelike. It shows the actual floor materials, it simulates where light fixtures are, and then at the end of the procession you can see the 2 escalators going down. We've actually studied many alternatives for where the escalators fall in relationship to the columns. And then we can go ahead and render this, and we can show different flooring materials and show different lighting arrangements and try to show what it actually will feel like in that space. And you can see here that we can get some very, very detailed observation of that prior to when this thing ever is built.
So let me show you what...
It is new mega resorts with new attractions like the Venetian that really drive increased visitation to Las Vegas. The concern, perhaps if I would voice a concern about Las Vegas, is the amount of property on the Strip. In order to be able to create a destination within a destination of the magnitude of the Venetian, you need 50, 60, 70 acres of land to do it in. There just aren't that many pieces of real estate left on the Strip. There are perhaps 2 or 3 other pieces of property, large development pieces of property that can add to Las Vegas. After that, I'm not sure where Las Vegas goes.
Las Vegas might spread out, but more likely it will tumble down to make room for something new. The Dunes Hotel, a landmark on the Strip, never saw its 40th birthday before it blew away.
I'm sure someone said you may tear it down someday, they would have laughed at them and said you're crazy and it's here forever. Nothing's forever in this city.
As the Vegas Fantasy Factory continues to crank out the latest and greatest concepts, even the new mega resorts might not endure. Because concrete and steel can't stand long on a foundation of dreams.